Good morning and welcome to Nexen Consulting YouTube channel. I'm Ida Kamara Crowder. I'm an international career coach and a professional development speaker. I created this channel to share with you some tips and strategies as you're navigating your own career journey. And I do this through interviews with experts in the field who have some amazing stories to share. So feel free to subscribe. Hit the share button and the like button. And if this can be valuable to anyone in your network, feel free to share it as well. So today we have the pleasure of hosting Stephanie Vak-Stephens, who is currently working at IFC, which is part of the World Bank. And Stephanie has a fantastic story on a global career in finance. And she's been doing it for quite a while, but she also maintained her long life passion for women empowerment in the world. So I can't wait to hear Stephanie's stories, and hopefully that would be an inspiration for all of you watching this. So welcome, Stephanie. Would love for you to introduce yourself. But before that, I want to say happy birthday because, yes, and thank you for sharing part of your precious day with me.
Decorations, yes.
Yes, it's giving away actually the age.
Yes,
absolutely. And well, thank you so much for being here, and please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for trying to say I was 25. But I'm gonna own the age, and there we are. So thank you for having me, Ida, and it's good to connect and good to be able to speak on your channel to help others. So as she said, my name is Stephanie Vak-Stephens. I have been in finance for the past 14 years now. So currently at the IFC in our global team based in Washington, DC, where I'm an investment officer looking at private equity fund investments. And that's everything from small growth equity funds, so small seed funds, to our SME funds, to our growth funds. So initially started off looking at our SME focused fund managers, and more recently, I got added on to look at seed and early stage as well as growth. So the entire spectrum of private equity funds. And so in that role as an investment officer, doing everything from business development to deal negotiations and due diligence, all the way to commitments. In addition to that, I also work, which is what I'm most passionate about, as Ida mentioned, working in sort of women empowerment and equality and in all the gender work. I work in looking at genderless investing across both our investment pool and our advisory, as well as research. So it's a broad bucket. So investments in private equity funds, but on the gender side, looking at how our PE and VC work can better integrate gender. And so in that space, in investment, how do we invest in women-led fund managers? How do we look at generalist fund managers who are looking to support women entrepreneurs? On the advisory side, we're looking at how do we build that ecosystem of entrepreneurship so we can have more women startups. And then on the research side, what we realize is most people think looking at women in PE or VC is just an impact objective. But what we're trying to do here is substantiate the business case so all investors can know that they actually need to put in gender, have a gender lens, avoid gender biases in the work that we do. Because what our research has shown is that that actually is good for business. So that's what I do currently. Before that, this role, still in the IFC, I was working in a financial institutions group where I was looking at investment in banks and non-banks. And there as well, I was looking at gender proposition for that business as well. So I always have this thing where I have my core job and then I have the gender piece overlaid. Prior to the IFC, I was at Kellogg doing an MBA. That's where I met Ida. And before that, I worked with Standard Chartered in the Middle East, as well as with the Royal Bank of Scotland in the UK. So I've kind of been everywhere, all over the map. I'm Ghanaian, a very proud one of that. I was born and raised in Accra and graduated with college from the University of Ghana.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this part of your story as well. And, I mean, hearing your story, it's very obvious that you not only have a geographical footprint, but within the finance space, you're kind of like spreading out also your footprint,
Correct.
including even technology, including women empowerment, including investment, venture capital, private equity. And I think that's fascinating to see how you are making your finance role have such an impact globally. Can you tell us more about, what do you like about this? Tell us a little more.
I love that. I love being able to, and it's great you said that, because not doing one role, you're able to not only spread your impact geographically, but then also functionally.
Right.
So, and in that case, what I love about it is you can do one thing in one market in investment, right? And then you can see an offshoot where you go into either a bank or a PE firm, and you're able to take that same experience in one market and move it into the other. I can give an example, and especially now with COVID, it's become so important, being able to have that sort of multifunctional experience to be able to help the situation across board. So for example, now we were doing a transaction where we had just done our plane, investment in a fund in Nigeria. And then COVID hit, and we're like, okay, how can we better support them? So that would mean reaching into our partnerships, and that's where, having a partnership type experience comes through, who also have supporting funding to be able to give some more funding and structure something different to be able to help out that entity in Nigeria with the goal to be able to replicate the same in our other markets. Something else that we do, and you mentioned like different things, we were supporting a tech startup also, who does a value chain business where they're able to streamline the value chain. And in that value chain, the key beneficiaries were women because they were looking at a distributorship model. And so that tech startup was able to streamline it, eliminate the middlemen, which meant that more of the funding was going to women and more of the profit was going into women. And in that, when COVID hit, there again, what can we do? Same thing, a restructure, bringing in another partner, taking that model and then moving it into another piece to better help. And so it's being able to have that breadth of experience, both across PE investing, both across tech startups, being able to bring in my intuition with the gender lens, bring in the partnership, bring in the research and everything else to have such a skill. We've been able to work, thanks to the IFC, I've been able to work in Nigeria, with projects in Tunisia and Pakistan and India. It's been everywhere. It's been amazing so far.
Oh man, that sounds fun. It actually sounds fun.
It is.
Wow. And it's just amazing that you're able to have an impact globally, being located in one area. And I mean,
Correct.
This is our world now. Right? Exactly what you were mentioning. So, it's undeniable that, technical skills are going to be important. A global mindset is going to be important. But, what does it take actually to work at the IFC?
Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned, so technical for sure. Because the IFC and indeed the World Bank Group prides itself in having the experts and the top of the cream. So to be able to come in, you need to show that you're top of your game in your technical skills. Right. The global mindset for sure. You're going to be working with people from all over the world. You need to be able to adapt, right? I've met people from places that I didn't even know existed in the world. My geography is not great. So, and I was mentioning this, like I didn't even know that there was a country called Laos PDR. And I was like, there is that global mindset, being a global citizen and you're technical. But it doesn't matter, right? Being able to work in the IFC, you need to have some tenacity, right? Because you're in there using private sector solutions to solve very difficult and complex developmental problems in emerging markets.
Right.
So the ability to structure deals and be able to hold it through to the end, because you would hit different speed bumps and road bumps along the way in trying to execute that project. In our infrastructure arms, my colleagues will tell you sometimes it takes 2.5 years to close a deal, right? And so being able to hold the fort, being able to be ready to be hit with everything, it is emerging markets, things come out of the woodwork, but having the tenacity and the drive to do it. And linked to that tenacity a little bit is also just the passion for impact, right? Because what makes it different at the IFC is you're in this juxtaposition of trying to balance doing a pure investment that is sustainable and that is good with impact. And just doing a pure investment that is good and sustainable is just like you working with any other finance institution, investment bank or etc. The impact piece that makes it different, and being passionate about that impact and sort of embracing it and knowing that no matter how difficult it is, there is a good at the end of it, makes it all the difference. So I'll say those two things, the tenacity linked to the fact that you want to make an impact in these very interesting yet complex projects that ultimately go out to solve problems in emerging markets is key.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Can you give us a glimpse of what it's like to work at IFC? Everyone is curious.
Everyone is curious. So what's it like to work at IFC? It's a huge organization. Like, you're talking 4,000 people at the IFC and about 10,000 people across the World Bank Group overall. Yeah. So it's a lot of people, which means being able and to be successful, being able to form functional relationships across. Yeah. Like I said earlier, we pride ourselves in having expertise. So we have experts all the way from, we just got someone on our team who's an artificial intelligence and machine learning expert, right? You have people who are experts in healthcare, and I'm talking expert top of the cream. And so being able to navigate all that expertise, being able to form those functional relationships, because it's and it helps you because in any deal you have an expert. It's also very global, like I said. And so having that global mindset, being able to go into to different parts of the world to be able to work, and being able to adapt to different cultures, and just being a global citizen and embracing that sort of, that you're in this institution that is global in nature and you need to fit into it, right? Be on deals in Myanmar. You could, if you're in the global team, you could be on deals anywhere in the world. Even if you're regional, you could be in different parts of the region. And you and I know that even when you take a regional context, Africa as a region, South Africa is very different from Nigeria. It's very different from Kenya. So you need to embrace that differentiatedness, if that is even a word, of the institution. Yeah. And being able to be that global citizen. So I think that's what it's like working at the IFC, the fact that it's huge, the fact that it's global. And honestly, what I say and what I love about it is you can be in one spot and truly have a career that spans so many things, right? And that's what it's like working there. I shared it with my intro. I have moved. This is continent number 4 for me. And through all of that, my quest really was to get exposure to different markets, right? And that meant physically moving either to the UK or physically moving to the Middle East just to be able to experience that. But now within the IFC, I can stay in one organization and still have that experience. So that is what it's like being at the IFC, being in one spot and being able to touch multiple geographies and touch multiple functions within finance.
That's fantastic. Wow, that is fantastic. And that's literally the image and the idea that we have, right? We're thinking the World Bank, we're thinking, such a large footprint.
Yes.
For the world. Can we go back a little bit to, you were talking about what it took, what it takes to get there, but I would love for you to also touch on the importance of networking and a focused networking and what it takes, because with such a large organization, I can imagine that you have to work on the collaboration piece, but even to get there, how do you stand out? How do you make yourself stand out to be an interesting candidate for such an organization? And then how do you stand out when you join the organization too, right? And to be
it's good you mentioned the two and
right.
break it down that way. So to be able to get in, I think people sometimes get it a little bit confused as to, or people are not very clear as to what the development finance community is, right? So if there is the bilateral organization, so like your CDC, which is the UK finance arm, your Proparco, which is the French one, or your Bio, which is the Belgian one. So there's that community. Then you've got your multilateral community. So there's at the IFC, of course, which is, you know, the mothership of them all. You've got AFDB, which is African Development Bank, you've got the IDB. So there's that entire community. And so I would say people coming in, even if it's not just at the forefront of coming straight into the IFC, know that community and network within that community, because that community talks to each other a lot. And mostly on transactions, you would see that community coming in on similar transactions because we have the same mindset. It's impact, right? In private sector solutions overlaid with public interventions. And so networking within that broader community, understanding the language, understanding the mission, how they'll all work together is key. So that's one entry point. Now, you can also sort of network. So I've talked about the multilaterals. Within the IFC, depending on your expertise, it's being targeted as to where you would fit, right? So say you were, for example, you come from a PEVC background. Ultimately, your networking should be within to this institution, or sorry, to this vertical within the IFC. And how you get through that, other than being, you know, do direct LinkedIn reach out as you can do, or just connecting with people who are 2 degrees of separation from them, it's also through conferences, right? So the private equity and venture capital conferences that most of the time IFC PE people and VC people attend. Sometimes we're panel speakers. So there is that inroad and just being plugged into that space, because that's your vision and that's your goal. So I'll say tailor it either to your expertise or to your interest, and just get to know people within that space. So it might not ultimately immediately translate into an opportunity, but in the future, you're someone that is known. Another piece that is sort of unique to us, we do tend to have a lot of consultancy positions come up across the IFC. This is IFC, right? So a lot of consultancy positions come up, a lot of sort of partnership work that we would do with other entities. So that's why I said it pays to talk to people within that community, because there's all these offshoots of things that you could do to sort of stay close to it and being able to demonstrate that you. So that's one piece to when you get in. And then of course, at your interview, absolutely nailing it, talking about why you're good for the role in terms of your expertise, but also, you know, having that emerging market and development driving you to make impact is definitely something, because that's what separates you from just being a pure finance person, right? Now, the second piece is when you get in. And this is something I tell other sort of post-MBA people who come in. It's not enough coming in and just doing your core job, right? Because then it's a huge institution and you will get lost pretty quickly. But it's raising your hands up to do some of the corporate initiatives that are going on. Raising your hand out to be able to look at different aspects, right, of the organization beyond just your job. So I'll tell you an example. This is how I got into the PEVC team. So like I said, I first started in banks and non-banks work. But then while I was there, I was looking at the gender proposition for an IFC-wide initiative, right? So at that point, I got to know people from other parts of the business who were also looking at a gender proposition. So the way we do the gender work, which is very interesting in IFC, which is why I like it, every business has their vertical doing their core job. But then there's a gender business group that looks at how they can incorporate gender in every business line. So that way the impact is maximized. All right. So, you know, coming out of financial institutions, raising my hand up to look at an initiative that cut across, got me exposed to different people. And that's when I met, my current supervisor in our PEVC space, who was also working on a gender initiative for the private equity and venture capital space. And so she bumped into me in the elevator. Literally, I got recruited in the elevator. So she bumped into me in the elevator. And she's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, good. She's like, oh, you're the girl from financial institutions looking at this. I said, yeah. She's like, how would you like to join my team next? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So how about that? And so then he set me up for an interview with the director at that point who was overseeing it. And the next thing I knew, that's how I had transitioned, because I was looking for another skill set and another way to expand and do VC and tech and PE type work. And so that's how I got in. So, always when you get in, don't be siloed, put your head down, just being an IU, but look up, see what else is going on, see how else you can plug in. It might mean extra work. For me, the gender work is like my night job, right? Because I have my core, the PE investment, PE fund investments, but I also have to do this work. A, I'm passionate about it, but B, it's what sets you apart, right? It's what helps you get out there. It's what gets you to know people and do something that is aligned with corporate strategy and corporate initiative, right? And so that's what I would say.
This is huge. You touch on so many critical aspect of navigating your own career. What stands out to me is definitely that proactive aspect, right? Because even when you're recruiting, you have to be proactive. You have to go ask questions. You have to find out about the institution, the organization, so you can actually elaborate on why you're interested in them. But then the work doesn't stop there, right? Inside the company, you have to continue to kind of differentiate yourself and then show, because for you, what literally this example is highlighting how, well, all of a sudden you were becoming the person for this area and you were known by other departments to the point where literally you got recruited on the spot, which is fascinating, but it's also a way to say, well, things don't happen just by chance, right? It's the extra commitment and that passion that you explained at the beginning, right? Which came out in everything you did. You touch on a lot of things, including, that extra work and that involvement in the women empowerment. Is there anything else you want to add on that? How did you combine the two, right? And continue to actually live that passion that is yours, involved with your current job. How did you do that?
Ida, it's not easy. And being able to sort of combine those passions, you need to have mental sort of resilience, right? Because it's a lot of work. I would, and just to give you some context, in the gender work, I'm not only looking at investments. I'm looking at advisory service propositions. I'm looking at partnerships. I'm looking at research, right? And so it's a lot of pieces to sort of stick together. And then at the end of the day, your core job is to be an investment officer.
Yes.
So it's having all those pieces, but I would say, to anyone who's looking to sort of have your passion as well as do your core job, because that's what you're meant to do, have that mindset knowing that it will demand a lot of you, right? It will demand a lot of you, but at the end of the day, keep focused on the goal and just go at it, right? If at any point in time you feel that it's a lot on your plate, practically speaking, pulling somebody to give a bit of help on the side. I think what sometimes people tend to do is because they're so laser focused and trying to get everything, they hoard everything to themselves. But being able to pull someone in and a team member to be able to hold one piece of it, ideally, and this is what I do, I tend to, and I have done that with one lady where I reached out, she's a junior analyst, right? But she had a passion for gender as well, but no idea how to get it. So I was like, hey, would you like to do some of this work? And in that, she would come and do a piece of it, but you also ignite a passion in her to also think through that, oh, I can actually also do this and also combine as well. So leveraging help, but then also through that, being able to use it to mentor somebody. The third piece I would say, so I've talked about having the mental resilience and knowing that is a lot of work, pulling in work. Don't lose yourself in it. Don't lose yourself in it. And that's probably comes to the mental piece at the end of the day. In your quest to sort of put everything together, there are times where you may have to put things on the back burner, right? And just focus on one thing at another. When things die down, then you pick it back up. And I guess that's the practical thing I'm looking for to say is be able to balance it out, right? So psych yourself mentally, pull in people, but also have that balance where you realize that you can't do everything at the end of the day, because you also have a personal life, right? Yes. And I'm a woman, I'm a mother, right? I'm a wife. And so there are times where you almost need to put your foot off the pedal a little bit, put some things down, work-wise, not the family, put those things down for a little bit, pick the core jobs, and then once those things die down, pick them up again. So that's how I practically manage it and balance it without losing my brain.
Yes.
Brain. Be able to do it.
Absolutely. And I really love the piece about pulling others also with you, because that's a way to elevate them. That's the way to also expose them to the possibilities and ignite maybe a fire that they have inside themselves and inspire them to also follow those passions and then kind of make sure that it could be part of their work also. So I really love this piece that you're adding, the mentorship, the inspiring, and bringing others on board, because in the end, indeed, we're not alone. It's a fact, right? We're not alone.
It's true. We're not.
Yes. And what is fascinating about your role and about finance is the fact that, well, finance is fun. you can do finance and still have an impact on others and still have and have a positive impact. And I would love for you to kind of give any advice to anyone interested actually in opening the minds, or at least pursuing a role in the finance world, or growing within finance. What advice would you have for them? I know you touch on a lot, but what else could you add?
I think two things, right? So starting out, having that broad finance understanding, right? So we either through business school or through extra professional, certifications, etc., just having a strong technical understanding of finance as a broad piece. Then as you grow from there and you sort of get to mid-career and almost get into senior, you need to find the space that's your expertise, that you own, right? And whether it be, private equity, venture capital, whether it be direct, whether it be M&A, whether it be corporate finance, whatever it is, just find that space within and grow in it, right? Because it's interesting, and I got this advice early on when I started my career from one of my mentors who I truly revere, and she said to me, look, at the base now, try and expand and grow your tentacles as much as possible, which is what I've been doing, right? I've done debt deals, I've done portfolio management, I've done different industries, I've done soft commodities, downstream oil and gas. I've done financial institutions now doing private equity funds and VC funds. And so just broadening your base as much as possible. But ultimately, I'm getting to that point when I'm at the point where I'm honing it down and tailoring it to where I would want to grow, right? And have that expertise in finance. So that's what I would want to say. The piece that is also interesting is not being restricted to one geography. I can't emphasize that enough. And I know usually people get comfortable in their same space, but being willing to look across borders, right? Because financial markets vary. Financial markets, what might work as an instrument in one piece, you cannot exclude macro factors that would make your deal collapse or work, right? And so as you gain financial acumen, also be willing to be able to work in finance across multiple geographies. And that may mean joining an institution like the IFC or not. Even if you join another multinational institution, right? Financial institution, be willing to move across the border. When I joined Standard Chartered in Ghana, I knew for sure that I would not do Standard Chartered in Ghana. I knew I would move at some point, and I did. And that's when I crossed over and I went to SCB in the Middle East out of Dubai for Standard Chartered. And so be willing to do finance across borders because it makes it so interesting, right? You're not like doing one thing in one market and seeing it all. But you realize that in this market, there's actually this financial instrument, or they're more advanced in using this instrument or this structure that you didn't know in your space. So be willing to move, okay? Be willing to expand your financial career beyond borders, not just technical, but also beyond borders. So that's a key piece that I would leave with people.
Absolutely. I love it. And you are touching on so many pieces because, and obviously we'll take out COVID, but our world now, we can move around. It's possible. It's easier than in the past. So, this generation has so much to look forward to, and to find out about, because now you can even, visit virtually different places. So I love that encouragement to be willing and to have the flexibility to go and explore other countries and other ways of doing finance, right? And other markets.
Can I put a quick plug in on that piece?
Love it.
So, initially it's like, okay, it's easier when you're young and you can just pick up your bag and go, yeah, sure. And then as you get to mid-career, because I'm sure people watching your channel will straddle across different, different moments in their life and different periods in their life. But exactly what you said, Ida, now with technology and what this world has shown us, you may not physically have to move. Yeah. But being able to sit here and do things in other parts, or just being exposed to other parts of the world, is critical. And thankfully, now we don't have to do it where we physically have to go. We may have to at different points in time. It might be a short trip, but ultimately, you can still explore using technology, right? So that excuse that people had, oh, I need to physically move, it's harder because I have family commitment, etc. That's true. But thankfully, the world has shown us that there are ways around it. So leverage that and use it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, this is just so insightful. So insightful. I mean, I can't wait to share this on the different platforms. Is there anything else you would like to add? I know we touched on a lot. You had a lot of, wise words and inspiring words for the viewers. Anything else you want to add?
Sure. And sort of this hinges on what I was talking about earlier about taking risk. And I say this in all sincerity, as an African and as a woman. We generally, and I can speak for myself and the people within my community who are, of similar kind to me, and some of whom are not African but are women, taking risk becomes a challenge. Because we like to have everything knotted, everything in place before we make a move to try one thing or another. It's fine. But I would tell people that you need to take calculated risk, right? Like, and this is the finance in me coming out, and apologies. You need to be able to see what your expected loss is, right?
I love it.
You would say, what's my expected loss here? Can I, what's the worst that could happen, and can I deal with it? Can I calculate this, and what's the fallback plan? And so be willing to take that calculated risk and go for it, because life will always not present you with an opportunity where everything is ready. You might have half information, not have half information, half of the piece is sorted, half is not. But ultimately, in as much as there's downside risk, you can see there's also an upside risk that you probably that you have no idea about. I'll give an example with my life, because I always try not to make it theoretical. When I was leaving Standard Chartered to come into Kellogg, it was a big deal. I was like, I'm going to leave. I was having an okay time in Dubai. I liked my space. I liked my apartment. I liked the shopping. I liked everything. I was settled. It was good. But then I also knew that I wanted to see more. I wanted to, what next, right? And so at that point, the issue of, doing an MBA came up, and I applied to all the suspect schools and got into Kellogg. And then it was like, okay, this is a risk. I'm going to leave my job because I had to resign, right? Leave my job and go and do an MBA with no idea if I'm going to get another job after or not. But I was like, listen, what's the worst case scenario here? I finished an MBA at Kellogg, which is not a bad thing to get, right? And then I come back and I have no job and I have to hustle it out, or come back to Standard Chartered and start again. What did I lose? A year or max 2 out of my life, right? For something that, okay. But it turned out, the upside turned out okay. So post, MBA at Kellogg, I got into the IFC, and that's where I am now, and I'm loving what I do. And so the risk was there. It was a hard decision. But ultimately looking beyond and say, okay, I know what my downside risk is. I'm gonna do it, come what may. And it's that I encourage people, and I say women because that's usually what holds women back, right? Because we're people who like to see everything together, versus men who be like, okay, calculate, not calculate, I'm done. And we miss out on so many opportunities just because of that innate nature to see everything through before we take a move. So that's sort of what I would like to leave with people. Please be willing to take a risk. Please be willing to try. And just know what your downside risk is, but also keep your eyes on the price and what the upside potential could be.
Absolutely. Oh, this is beautiful. Expected loss. That's going to be my new one. I love it. Stephanie, this is fantastic. Think of your expected loss. Take the risk. Try. Otherwise, you won't know. There's more out there. Be proactive. I mean, there's so much that you shared with us. Thank you, Stephanie, and we'll be in touch anyway. And happy birthday. Enjoy, and I can't thank you enough for sharing that precious day with me today.
Oh, anytime for you, Ida. Anytime. No, I mean, for me, it's my birthday, and it's always good to give back. Right. Yeah. And so I see this as my giving back on a day. I've had the benefit of some very good mentors and coaches, my husband inclusive, who have sort of given support and guided me in my career. And so what I can do is just give back for anyone who needs it. Just beautiful. To navigate it. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
You too, my dear. Take care.
Thank you.